Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, I'm sure it's going to be an exciting afternoon at Live at the Waterhole with Africam and Wild Earth. And great to have you all on board. I'm looking forward to some interesting discussions this afternoon. And you can see that we are starting with quite a wet and rainy King's Camp in the Timbavati Game Reserve with a couple of little terrapins. Interesting to see those that joined us yesterday. We had terrapins, I think, on this exact log. Looked like a very similar size to the one on the back. And now we've got two. And they're not gula flapping or gula pumping like they were yesterday. So I'll discuss that a little bit more as we go on. But my name's Maxine Gaines, and it's going to be awesome to be with you for the next 2 hours or so. So yes, if you have a look at this terrapin, there's a slight movement in his throat. But those of you that were with us yesterday, the terrapin that was on this log was really kind of expanding and contracting that area at the bottom of bottom of his neck or his throat area quite visibly. And we were all talking about what it could mean. And I did some reading yesterday, and it seems like as we were kind of discussing, it could have something to do with olfaction, in other words, with smelling. Sometimes it can be a sign of respiratory distress. So a terrapin that's possibly maybe held his breath for too long underwater and is coming up to just get some air. So it could be a sign of respiratory distress as well. So yeah, and sometimes in some of the papers it said that it was actually could be a sign of some lung disease. I don't know, the terrapin looked fairly healthy, so I think there's a few reasons why they might practice that gula pumping, but it was really interesting to see it yesterday. Seems like all the terrapins are enjoying the rain though. Good afternoon, Colin Eames. It's lovely to have you on board with us this afternoon. Please send through all your questions, comments, discussion points. It's you guys that make these Live at the Waterhole sessions so interesting by throwing in curveball things to think about and interesting things to discuss. So we'd love to hear from you. Please, even if it's just to chat, tell us where you are, who you are, where you watching us from, anything. We'll welcome any discussion. Hello, Penelope Kenyon. Lovely to have you on board with us. And I see you are from a very soggy north coast of KZN. Yeah, I can relate to that. The rainfall in KZN over the last while has been good, but it is particularly soggy. But it's good. We need this rain. We need this rain at the start of summer. Many of our dams and waterholes are looking quite dry. Many of our rivers quite low. So we need to celebrate the rain, which it looks like these terrapins are doing. That one on the right looks filthy. He's obviously been in the mud quite a bit. The others, their shells look quite clean, but he looks very much covered in mud. Good afternoon, Joan Mello. Happy Tuesday to you too. I think it's going to be a good one this afternoon. I've heard from Final Control that there is rain at most of our cameras this afternoon, and that'll be really interesting to see what comes out in the rain. You know, many people think, oh, it's raining, we're not going to see anything. But actually, in my experience, as long as it's not kind of torrential downpour with wind and lightning and all the rest, if it's lovely, gentle rain, I've found that animals tend to just carry on with life, and you end up sometimes seeing really interesting stuff in the rain. Okay, well, we are going to, I'm sure, come back to these little chaps. They look fairly settled for the afternoon, but we're going to head over to Tembe and see what's happening at the waterhole there. Earlier it was raining quite heavily there. Lovely herd of elephants coming down to drink here. Julia says Tembe is her favorite camera. I must say, I love Tembe. There always seems to be a lot of things going on, and I love the birds that we see there and hear there as well. Interesting to see the way the elephant's going down into, it's almost a little mud puddle separate from the waterhole itself. I'm sure those puddles have probably been created by the elephants digging holes, and he's obviously using that to throw mud on himself, not for drinking. Lots of these holes around the waterhole at Tembe, which I'm sure have been dug by the elephants over the years. And they become such important little puddles for things like warthogs and other animals that like to wallow in the mud. Ari, lovely to have you with us from all the way from the Netherlands. Great to have you on board with us this afternoon. I see one of those elephants there has a radio collar on. There are a few elephants in Tembe that have collars just to monitor their movements. Tembe is quite a small reserve, and so it's very important that the elephants are quite closely monitored, and there's a lot of research that goes on with the elephants in Tembe. They also do take elephants off Tembe quite a bit and relocate them to other reserves because it is not a particularly big system. And they obviously don't want the elephants, the population to get too high. Lovely to see them reaching, or him reaching up like that for branches. It reminds me of some of those famous pictures you see of the elephants in Mana pools in Zimbabwe, reaching really high to get at fruits and branches, especially in the drier months. Zola says she'd love to see an elephant stand on its hind legs. It's the most phenomenal thing to see, Zola. Actually, this time last year, or around October last year, we went to Mana Pools. I took my my two sons there for the first time, and actually it was my husband's first time to go as well. I'd been a few times before, but we had the privilege of watching a very famous elephant called Boswell stand up on his hind legs and take some branches down, and quite incredible to see how he ate. He ate from those branches, but then when he left them, there was actually quite a bit of food still left. And some of the other elephants that either can't stand on their hind legs or perhaps aren't as big as him or haven't learned how to do it, um, came quite quickly and made use of the branches that he had dropped on the floor. So it was really interesting to see that as well. He wasn't just getting food for himself, but he was actually providing food for some of the other elephants. And he could very easily have finished off every scrap on those branches. You know, it's quite an effort for him to stand up on his hind legs like that. So I thought it really interesting that he left the branches lying there with some food still available and then went on and found another place to reach up and grab. I think there may have been some intention in that. Lady Macbeth says it's Boswell who stands on his hind legs. Yes, it is Lady Macbeth. Yeah, beautiful elephant and really very tolerant of human beings as well. There's lots of guides that take people walking around where he is found, and he's often viewed on foot. And he's just a very tolerant boy. He's a lovely boy. Gillian's asking if KZN gets marula fruits. Absolutely. That northern part of KZN, there are lots of marula trees there and definitely lots of marula fruits. Granny Mango, you asking, was Boswell named after the circus? I'm assuming that's how he got his name, because what he does really does look like a circus trick that you would see taught to elephants in the circus. But he's was never a captive elephant. He's a completely wild elephant, and he learned that trick. You know, it was probably passed down. That knowledge was probably passed down from other older bulls, and he has learnt it from them, and he is now teaching various younger bulls that hang around with him how to do it. So it's fascinating to see how that ancestral knowledge that elephants have is passed from one generation to the next. It's one of the things that makes me really wild about trophy hunters saying that it's okay to shoot large male elephants, because you just don't know what. Yes, they may have lived out their reproductive life and they may not be contributing anymore to the gene pool, but they still have so much to give to the young elephants that have a chance to hang around with them in their final years and learn from them and learn all the tricks of the trade of being an elephant. And it's very clear to see with Boswell that he is actually teaching the younger bulls how to do what he does. Just by them watching him and seeing how it benefits them in the dry season to have that food available. So, yeah, very, very interesting. I see Francine is asking whether the Marnapools elephants are stronger than the elephants in the Sabi Sands because they can stand on their hind legs. Francine, I don't think so. I think it probably has something to do with availability of resources and the trees that those elephants reach up for are a specific species of tree that we down in South Africa call an anna tree. They have a different name for it up in Zim, which has slipped my mind. I'll think of it now. But it's a Fadeherbia alba tree. That's the Latin name. And if you look at those trees in Zimbabwe around the monopools area, they look like someone has taken a kind of an automatic sawing machine and trimmed them all around to create a kind of a park-like environment. So the lower branches have been trimmed off to a height that is out of reach for most elephants. And yet the leaves on that in the dry season are very nutritious when there's not a lot of other food around. And then also they have really incredibly nutritious pods with seeds in them that the elephants love. And so in order to get to those leaves and those pods, the elephants actually have to stand on their hind legs. They have no other option because the lower branches have been trimmed to such a level. Those of you that are interested can go in and have a look at some photographs of monopools and maybe just search for, monopools, elephants standing on hind legs, and you'll see what I mean about those trees. They really are trimmed in like a straight line at a certain height, and very, very difficult for most elephants to reach up and get to the very nutritious pods and leaves. And so I think that there's been an incentive for those elephants over the years to learn to stand on their hind legs, probably more than in other systems where perhaps the diversity of food trees is higher and there's more food around. Okay, we're going to go to Djuma quickly and see what's happening there while we leave these Ellies to their drinking. Ooh, sounds like something's happening here. Nice little group of impala. Can definitely see some rain falling. Oh, and look at all those impala. We were talking about this yesterday, but most of those mature females looking very, very pregnant. Any day now, those first babies are going to be born. I think the noise that we can hear is probably just the rain dripping around the very sensitive microphone that's on that camera at Djuma. Sounds like some impala alarming somewhere nearby. I can hear what sounds like some impala alarm calls. Obviously not these ones, but they are paying close attention to whoever is alarming. Oh, yeah, that male in the background is looking very, very nervous and alert. And I know Marips was around this area this morning. He was quite close to the Djuma Dam, and those impala in the background are very, very upset about something. I'm almost sure there's a predator there. They're looking to the right. So if any of the zoomies are listening, maybe just pan to the right because there's definitely something there. They wouldn't alarm like that for nothing. See how they're coming closer? So that tells me it's probably not a cheetah or a wild dog, because when impala see cheetah and wild dog, that's not how they react. It's more likely to be either a leopard or a lion that they've spotted. Venus is saying you also can't wait to see the first impala lambs. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Gosh, I think these impala have seen. I've got a feeling it might be Marips. Oh, it would be so nice if we could find him. Apparently he was looking amazing. I missed the show this morning, but from what I've heard, he's looking good. He's looking fat and healthy. So, wouldn't it be wonderful if he put in an appearance on Live at the Waterhole for us too? I'm sure there's something there. Those impala are definitely, sometimes they alarm, you get a brief alarm, and then it's because they've seen something that they think was a predator, and then they kind of quieten down because they realize they've made a mistake. I've seen that often with warthog. See warthog coming through the long grass, and the impalas alarm at it, and then they realize quite quickly that it's nothing. But these guys are not stopping. They're not giving up on the alarm calls. So I'm pretty sure that they've seen a cat. They're looking into the thicket. Yes, yes, I see something moving just where those wires of the camera are. Yes, there's definitely something in there. Is it a hyena? Is it a leopard? It's still there, but it's just been obscured a little bit by the wires of the camera. It did look like a leopard, I think. I just saw the movement, but it went kind of behind the camera wires, or the whatever those black things were on the right. Oh, how exciting. I don't know if the camera can go any further right than this. I think this might be the extent of its turn in this direction. Oh, there we go, maybe. When I saw it was there. Looks like it possibly moved further right now. It was in that blurry area where there's obviously some bits of the camera getting in the way of the focus of the lens. Shem, well done, Zumi. I know this can't be easy. I know there is kind of a limit to how you can move the camera, and unfortunately I think that leopard is sitting in our blind spot, but maybe if there's a way of getting past that tree, we might just have another view somewhere there. Yes. I'm almost sure, based on where this is all playing out, that it must be Marips. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to see him? Now, for those of you that didn't watch the drive this morning, I think Marips had an impala up a tree. There was various debate about whether it could have been killed by him, or whether it was possibly Tlalamba that made the kill and he stole it. But I'm just wondering if he's not maybe going down for a drink after having eaten, and then maybe going to return to his kill. This is very exciting. Yeah, I think let's stick here for a while and see if we can figure out where this leopard has gone. I'm sure we had that brief glimpse of him, but it's just where he could have gone from here now. Whether he's gone down for a drink at the little pan, or whether he's heading back to the tree where the impala carcass was, I'm not sure. I can hear sounds like some monkeys alarming now in the distance as well. I'm just wondering if he hasn't gone down for a drink, possibly. You know, leopards will often do that. Most cats will. They don't need water every day, but often when they've had a bit to eat, they like to go down and have a drink. So it's very likely that he is heading down for a drink of water. Listen to the monkeys, the vervet monkeys alarming. Impala all still seem to be able to see him because they are not letting up on their alarm calls. Normally when the leopard goes out of sight, they'll still be very alert, but they'll stop alarming. Oh, the monkeys are joining in the fray as well. It's incredible when you hear the noise that all of these various animals make when they see a predator. It really is it's a good lesson for us. It makes us realize why it's sometimes so easy for a hyena to find a leopard that's just made a kill. You know, other predators within hearing range are bound to come and check and see what's going on. I think he might be by the pan. That dam is so dry, it's difficult to know where he's gone down to drink. But I reckon he may have gone for a drink at the pan. Oh, maybe not. Or maybe he's still heading there. Now, if he's come from a kill and gone down to the pan, he'll probably follow the same route back again. And he also, as a young male leopard, you know, in a territory that isn't his, yes, it's his father's territory, but he's at the age now where his dad's not going to be too impressed with him being around. So he's probably not enjoying all this fuss that's being made over his presence. Leopards don't like anyone to know that they're there, and this is a lot of fuss. I'm pretty sure that the impala can still see him because of the amount of alarming that they are still doing. Might be a good idea to check the waterhole as well. Maybe he did decide to go down there for a drink rather than the pan. I don't know how much water is left there. You can hear the birds alarming, the monkeys alarming, impala still alarming. Well, what I think we might do is go back to Tembe now, and the final control will keep an eye on this camera, and they will let us know if they see him, and then we'll quickly pop back here and have a look. So let's head over to Tembe for now, and let final control see if they can pick up. Can see the steady rain falling at Tembe as well. This rain is really widespread to northern KZN and beyond into southern KZN. It's lovely rain. And there's a very nice view of one of those holes that the elephants are obviously digging, or have dug, should I say. Oh, lovely Diederik's cuckoo calling in the background. That's very much a sound of summer. They go very quiet in the winter. Some cuckoos migrate, some just don't call because it's not the breeding season, but they're still around. So yeah, hearing the cuckoos calling is a definite sign of summer. That white blob on the bush there, I'm wondering if that's a foam nest frog. I haven't seen many foam nest frog nests so far this season, but I suppose with the rains that we're having, we could have the foam nest frogs starting to build their nests on the bushes overhanging the water. I thought I saw a little white blob. That will be one of the first for the season. If it is, yeah, that definitely looks like a foam nest frog nest there. Lovely. Wow, that's lovely to see. First one of the season for me. Perfect timing. So as the rains come, female goes up there and she attracts a bunch of males, and she, as they are kind of mating with her, she rubs her hind legs together and creates this foam out of what would be the jelly that normally surrounds frogs' legs. So that same substance, she almost beats it into like a meringue type consistency, and then lays her eggs in there. And then the eggs are kept safe from fish and from anything else that might want to eat them in the water. And then when the tadpoles hatch and they start wriggling around, they drop down into the water below. So it's a great way of keeping the young safe. That aim of hers, though, looks a little bit off. I don't know if that branch is actually overhanging the water, or maybe it's just the angle that we're seeing it from. Oh, but this is such beautiful rain. There's a grey heron enjoying the rain there. Lolly, you say you love these nests. They look like meringues. Yes, they definitely do look like meringues. They even feel a little bit like, not a very hard meringue, but they've got, not when they're fresh, but when they've been there for a few days and you feel them, they've got a very spongy kind of a texture to them. Oh gosh, you can see the very concentrated urea that heron has left there. I'm sure most of you know this, but birds don't have a separate... Oh, there's a little hummercorp. That's always lovely to see. Birds have a cloaca. They don't have a separate kind of a holes for feces and urine. And so that would be a mixture of feces and urine that heron sprayed out there. Okay, well, I believe that there's a bit of activity at Hyena Pan up in Botswana. So let's leave Tembe for now and head up to Hyena Pan, see what's going on there. Lovely view of that hammerkop. Ah, there we go. Lots of elephants. Sadly, no rain here in Botswana yet. The rainy season does tend to get there a little bit later than down south, so nothing to be concerned about yet. Oh, look at that tiny little one. That is really little. So precious. There's actually a couple of really young elephants in this herd. I love this pan because it really makes it so clear. Oh, these little guys are so small. I would say they are definitely, both of them, probably less than 3 months old. They really are little. What I was saying, I love this pan because it makes it so clear how the elephants favor the clear, clean water for drinking, and then they use the muddy water for kind of bathing and throwing mud over their bodies. And you really can see it so clearly here. They all come for their drink at the little well that has clear water, and then they go off and bathe in the muddy pan. Now those little ones were both drinking. It's really interesting because they will obviously still be suckling at that age. They are very small, still definitely suckling milk from mum, but certainly copying and learning from the adults and doing what they do. And I'm sure at that age they will need to get some of their moisture requirements from water, not just the milk that they drink. Oh, but that is so tiny. Look at that. I'm trying to figure out who its mum is. I'm thinking it must be the one to the left of it. Everyone's having their turn. Very peaceful drinking session. No one getting upset with anyone else. Lovely to watch. Oh, so tiny. You wonder how long they must have had to walk to get to the water, because there really isn't a lot of obvious food around for them here. Oh, look at that little one. Obviously both the little ones have had a lovely mud bath before coming down for a drink. Still still very hairy. You can actually see the hairs, the fuzz on its body. Hudson says he looks like he's got a moustache. Yeah, yeah, he is very fuzzy all over. And his mother obviously had a wonderful mud splash or mud bath somewhere. And that one youngster that's gone behind the big one there looks like it's lost most of its tail. The tail is definitely just a little stump on the one youngster. Oh, there's having it, and that other youngster's having a lovely scratch. I love going down to some of these water holes on foot and just investigating the big trees and the fallen over logs and the rocks around the water, because you can see which of those things have been used for years and years and years by elephants as scratching posts. Some of them are just worn smooth, and you can see it's not just, something that's happened over a short period of time, but it's years and years of continued use of some of these logs and trees and stones. Oh, look at that. They both had their trunks in each other's mouths. Now, that's so interesting. They probably weren't giving each other water. It's more probably smelling each other, tasting each other's hormones. It's a way that elephants communicate with each other. Really interesting to see. Just getting a sense of the, sometimes the reproductive status or the stress levels of another elephant. That's a youngish male, so he could very well have been testing the reproductive status of that female by putting his trunk in her mouth like that. See how those elephants reacted to the car. They weren't that happy with that vehicle driving past. They definitely had a good look at it. Can hear the greater blue-eared glossy starlings in the background there. And the sky above these ellies is looking quite cloudy, so let's hope that it's bringing some rain to Botswana in the dry spell, in the dry season. Definitely looks promising when you look at that sky. October in a lot of these areas, I often hear it referred to when you're traveling through Botswana and Zimbabwe. I've worked up in Botswana in the month of October, and everyone calls it suicide month because it's just so hot and so dry, and everyone's just over the dry season and wanting the rains. And then November comes and it normally brings relief. So hopefully November will bring relief. Daniel Sophia, you're saying you would love to go to South Africa. Gosh, we'd love to have you anytime you want to come. It's a wonderful place to come and visit, especially our wilderness areas, truly special. So, on that note, any of you that are keen to be coming to South Africa in the near future, James is going to be hosting a Mala Mala photographic safari. And this will be in Mala Mala Game Reserve, which is part of the Sabi Sands area. And it will be from the 2nd to the 7th of July 2025. And there is space for 4 people on that safari. It's going to be an awesome safari, a privately guided photographic extravaganza with James Henry and his extensive experience of animal behavior and capturing wildlife images. The safaris will be in a special photographic vehicle, giving the greatest comfort and stability when attempting to capture special moments. So definitely worth thinking about if you are thinking of coming to South Africa and if you're interested in taking incredible wildlife photographs. James is an amazing teacher with a great sense of humor, and I'm sure that you will have lots and lots of fun and learn a huge amount on that safari. So, yeah, that would be an amazing thing to do. Please let us know. Please contact Wild Earth Travel if you are interested in that or if that sounds like something you'd like to do. And if those dates don't suit you, get hold of us anyway. I'm sure that we can make a plan for different dates, different time. Just let us know. Lovely sound of the ring-necked dove. Work harder, work harder. At least that's what all the bird books say that dove is saying. Seems like there could be something happening up at Victoria Falls. So let's head over to Vic Falls and see if there's any vulture activity or anything interesting going on at that camera as the elephants move away. Oh yes, we've got some vulture activity, some marabou storks. We're looking at a white-backed vulture there, hooded vulture, and a marabou stork. Looks like that vulture might be thinking about taking off. Oh, here comes another hooded vulture in, all coming for a bit of a drink. That hooded vulture on the right there, the one kind of in the middle between the marabou stork and the vulture on the left, I don't know if you can see how white his chest looks, but that's probably just an indication of a really full crop, and so the feathers are kind of puffed out there. The feathers on the chest don't normally look so puffy and white. They normally lie a bit flatter, but because it's puffed out like that, it probably means that he's had a good meal and he's got a full crop. You can hear some guinea fowl calling in the background, probably a flock of guineas coming down as well. I can definitely hear them vocalizing somewhere. There's that call that you can hear. There is the helmeted guinea fowl. Something noisy either taking off or landing there. It's amazing the sound that feathers make when birds take off and land as they cut through the air. They can be really noisy. Owls are the exception to that rule with their kind of fuzzy edges to the feathers. The feathers don't have that hard edge that cuts through the air. They've actually got little feathery fringes to the outside edges of their feathers, which makes them fly very quietly. So you wouldn't hear an owl taking off or landing like that. Marabou stork cooling his feet off in the water. I can hear lots of weavers in the background. I'm wondering if they're not building their nests overhanging the water, which the weavers often do as a means of protection. Definitely sounds like there's a weaver colony somewhere close by. Lovely grey here and there, and a little blacksmith lapwing in the foreground. Lots of birds at this waterhole today. I'm still convinced we're going to see some guinea fowl coming down somewhere because they were very vocal. Ah, here we go. There they are, running away from the water, and some warthogs as well in the background. I see Hilary B from the UK is saying that vultures are her absolute favourite bird. The way they run with their wings partially open is fascinating and so macabre. Yeah, it's really interesting to see the way they do that. And sometimes when they're at a kill, they spread their wings out to try and intimidate one another as well, make themselves look as big as possible, and then go running at each other in this weird goose-stepping it almost, a very weird kind of goose-stepping maneuver that they do. They can be real clowns. But yes, I agree, they are my absolute favourite birds as well. I have a real soft spot for vultures. Now, what do you suppose those warthogs can be finding to eat there? There really doesn't appear to be too much food on the ground there. Maybe there's some leaves that those little bushes have dropped that they're picking up. They are predominantly grazers. They will dig for roots as well, but if there's nutritious leaves that have landed on the floor, they certainly will eat those as well. Nina, you ask, why do warthogs have to bend their knees when feeding? Well, they don't have to, but they do it quite often, especially when they are uprooting grass. So if you think about it, if you, as a warthog, if you are down on your knees, it just creates a bit more leverage, and you can then use your nose a little bit more strongly to dig the grass up. So it's like a lever. They create a lever that then gives them a bit more power to be able to dig up bits of grass with their nose. And so that's the reason that they spend a lot of time on their knees. It's not necessarily when they are grazing, although they will do that too, because it's probably just too much of an effort to keep getting up and down from your knees. But the reason that it evolved was because of their habits of uprooting plants and needing to dig with their noses. So when they're not digging at all, like that warthog there, oh, there he goes. Now he wants to dig now, so he's gone down on his knees. You know, when it looks like there's no grass, like it does now around this pan, there will still be alive roots of grass from the previous year, because often when grass dies down, it withdraws all of its nutrients into the roots. And so sitting there underneath the soil will be living roots of grass just waiting for the rainy season, and then it'll sprout up with fresh leaves. And so even when it looks like there isn't much food for them, by just digging around a little bit in the soil, they can actually feed on the living grass roots, which gives them masses of nutrients, because the grass has stored its nutrients in the roots over the dry season. Looks like just one vulture left there now. The others have all gone. Amazing that this pan consistently, or these cameras here at Victoria Falls Safari Lodge, consistently deliver vultures. I've only seen 2 species here though. It's going to be interesting to see whether there's more over the years. Now look at the water there. I don't think it's raining though. I think that might just be bubbles from fish and various things in the water. Or could it be raining? It'll be really nice to know that there's rain falling up at Victoria Falls as well, but I think that's more likely to just be activity in the water itself. I can't see any drops of rain falling in front of the camera. But vulture seems to have something wrong with his beak. I was looking at him earlier. It's almost like his beak is either malformed or he's got something stuck on the beak. Definitely doesn't look normal. The bottom part of his mandible looks slightly abnormal. He seems to be quite healthy though, so it's obviously not affecting him too much. Oh, maybe it's just something stuck. Oh no, I actually think he's fine. I think it's just the way he's holding his mouth, with his tongue sticking out a little bit, that it looked like the beak was misshapen at the bottom, but when he closed his beak it looked normal. I think he's fine. I think he just has his mouth open with his tongue sticking out slightly. Okay, we're going to stay at Victoria Falls, but we're going to link now to the camera that gives us a different perspective that gives us a bit of an aerial view. So let's see what's happening from that perspective. Okay, so here we have a few more vultures. I don't see as many scraps lying around as yesterday, but they do look like they are wandering around and picking up little bits and pieces of bone on the ground, which I explained yesterday is so important for them from a calcium acquisition point of view, and especially if they've got chicks in the nest, they need to give those little fragments to the chicks. Again, it looks like predominantly two species. We've got mainly hooded vultures with a couple of white-backed vultures, and then obviously the marabou storks. Okay, we're going to pop back to Tembe Elephant Park now and see what is happening there. We've got some, looks like some big elephant bulls coming down to the water for a drink. That's lovely. Looks like a hammercock taking off there, flying away from us, or flying towards the camera, but away from the water. Probably disturbed by the elephants, who can be quite intolerant of the poor water birds. Oh, a few more ellies. And just this beautiful, steady, soaking rain, which we're all giving thanks to Mother Earth for. It really is lovely. A couple of Egyptian geese being herded to the left of the screen by the elephant. He looks like quite an old elephant bull. He's not such a big tusker, but just looking at the depressions in the skull above his eyes, quite sunken in there, which is generally a sign of older age. So he's not a youngster. Oh, lovely to listen to them drinking. Looks like he's coming to find some mud, to have a mud bath. like such fun. Good morning, Sandy Franklin, or afternoon. Lovely to have you on board. Yeah, the ambient mic at this waterhole is really great. You get some, yeah, ambient mic is really good. You get lovely sounds of what the elephants are doing and the birds. It's a really fantastic mic. Gosh, he is really making sure that there is not a single inch on his body that isn't covered in mud. You can see the mud dripping off his belly as he sprays. You can see now when you see how good the coverage is of his body by mud, you can understand why elephants in different parts of the country can look like they are different colors. It's got nothing to do with the shade of the elephant's skin, and a whole lot to do with whatever minerals happen to be in the soils in the area where they have their mud baths. So in Etosha, the elephants can sometimes look white, because of the pale desert soils there. And in some parts of the country, they have a very reddish, orangey red tinge to them because of the iron oxides in the soils and the mud. Parts of KZN have got black cotton soils. The soils are very dark, kind of a dark grey black colour, so the elephants there can look quite dark. All just depends on the coloration of the soil. I would imagine that some of those minerals in the soil, if they used kind of long enough and consistently enough, would almost permanently stain the elephant's skin a slightly different colour. Oh, the rain is falling there. So nice. He's resting his trunk. Jen Elliott, you say he's an older gent? Yeah, he definitely is an older gent. He's not a youngster. And there we have the Hardy-Dar ibises, so common in KwaZulu-Natal and throughout most of the country now. I remember growing up, they never used to be that common inland. You always heard Hardy-Dars when you came on holiday to the coast. It was very much a coastal, specifically a Natal coastal sound. But these days you tend to find them all over. Their distribution has definitely increased. Oh, that is an amazing mud bath. He's throwing quite solid mud over himself compared to the other elephant earlier who was throwing very kind of liquid, watery mud. I'm sure there must be good reason for that. Possibly this chap needs to get rid of some skin parasites, and when that hard mud or the thicker mud hardens, he can go and rub it off, get rid of the ticks. It But yeah, there's definitely a different consistency to what he is putting onto his body compared to what the other male was doing. This is a younger male. You can see the hollows in the skull above the eyes not nearly as apparent or as sunken in as the bull we were watching earlier. Love to see the way he scoops the sand with his foot into the crook of his trunk and then throws it onto his body. Oh, here comes another Ellie. Another one with a collar. We had one with a collar earlier. And I seem to think that the one with the collar earlier was a female. So I think this is a different elephant with a collar, because this looks like a male. digging at that. That elephant actually doesn't have any tusks. Look at that. That is very interesting. It's not common at Tembe to see elephants with no tusks. In Addo Elephant Park, it's a lot more common to see elephants with no tusks. But in Tembe, you very seldom see ellies with no tusks. So that's really interesting and amazing to see how he's very healthy, doesn't look any worse for wear for having no tusks. Maybe maybe he is not going to be able to compete with other males as much in mating rights, but from a survival point of view, doesn't really seem to be bothering him too much to have no tusks. He looks very healthy. Obviously, elephants do use their tusks as tools, to perhaps dig up roots or strip bark off trees. But what I have noticed, when you have an elephant with a bit of a disadvantage, if one elephant has started to strip a bark off the tree by gouging its tusks in there and then feeding on the bark, he might come behind another elephant like that and be able to then use his trunk, because the other elephant has gouged the initial holes, and so he can then use his trunk to strip bark off as well. So being in a group like this is probably important for that elephant, because he will need to use his friends to help him with some of the tasks that he might find a little bit more difficult. Sandy Franklin is asking how old I think he is. He doesn't look particularly old. I would probably put him in his kind of 20s. I need to get another look at him compared to some of these others, but he certainly isn't an old elephant. But I don't think he's a teenager anymore. He looked a little bit big to be a teenager. This chap's definitely a teenager, and you can see he's got small tusks. But the tuskless elephant, I would say probably in his mid-20s maybe. Can be quite difficult to age elephants when they're in their middle years. Look at them scratching with the one scratching with his front leg and the other one scratching with his back leg. Now this is a big boy. Sure, he is big, and the others seem to respect him quite a bit. So this guy's being a bit cheeky. But you can see the size difference with them. The boy on the left, who's just out of frame, quite a bit bigger than this chap. Actually, I'm looking at this. This actually looks like it could be a cow. Sorry, I'm just suddenly had a better look. I may have been wrong with my first description of it as a male. Could actually be a female. Let me just see if I can get a better look there. Gosh, I need to see the forehead. The male's forehead is a lot rounder and the female's is more angular. I initially thought it was a bull, but then the angle that I saw suddenly made it look like it could be a cow. So the verdict's out on that. Sandy Franklin's asking, why do you think he doesn't have tusks? It's probably genetic. It doesn't look like the tusks have broken off there. So, a lot of tuskless elephants is just a gene that's passed from one individual in the population to another. So it could be genetic. No, it is a bull. It's a bull. I was right the first time. I think we're going to head to Old Donyo. I think there might be something happening there, and we'll come back here if anything else interesting transpires. But yeah, a rounded forehead, and it's definitely a bull. Yeah, so Sandy Franklin, it's probably to do with genetics, that those tusks are not there. Right, we are now with Africam up in Old Donyo in Kenya, and we also have some ellies here. Wow, got some beautiful ellies here. Magnificent specimens. That one that is partially obscured seems to have a broken right tusk. Very thick tusk, but it looks to be broken. But he looks like he's a magnificent tusker. See how much redder these elephants appear to be. Now again, as we were discussing, that has nothing to do with their skin color and everything to do with the color of the soil. Got some plain zebras coming in for a drink. I wonder if the elephants are going to let them drink or whether they're going to have to wait their turn. Lenny is asking, why do the elephants have sunken heads as they get older? Lenny, it's just that as they get older, they start to lose weight, and the flesh starts to kind of melt away from them, and it's partially to do with the fact that they can't feed as well anymore. And I think most of you know that the elephants have 6 sets of teeth. And once that final 6th set starts to wear down, it becomes very difficult for elephants to feed nicely and for them to extract the kind of nutrients that they need to get out of their food. And when that happens and they start to lose weight, one of the first places that you notice that weight loss is weirdly on the skull. And you can see that big boy now that we're looking at, the one that's partially obscured. You can really see the sunken hollows in his skull. And he's obviously a really, really old bull. And so it really is just, it's it's a consequence of losing weight, and one of the first places that weight loss is really visible is in those fleshy parts of the skull that then start to melt away. So you really then start to see the bone structure of the skull, as opposed to there being some nice meat on those bones. Zachary Adams is asking, how old are these elephants? Okay, so if we look at the one to the far left who has the broken tusk, we haven't seen him properly, but just judging by his skull and just his body size, I would say he is definitely in his 50s, probably moving towards his late 50s, possibly even early 60s. He's an old boy. And then the two, oh, okay, we're back at Tembi. Sorry, I think there may have been a problem with that camera at El Doño. Maybe we'll come back to them. I think the link might have frozen there. Sorry, everyone. But yes, so you can sometimes get an idea of an elephant's age just looking at its body size, because elephants are not like us. Once they reach adulthood and they sexually mature, they still continue to grow. So they will grow in body size through most of their lives, and that means that a really big elephant is probably quite an old elephant. So you can use body size as an indicator. You can use the shape of the skull and the kind of sunken in hollows in the skull as also an indicator of age. And then tusk size can be an indicator. It's a little bit trickier because it is genetic. And so, certain elephants will have quite big tusks as they get older, and other elephants are just never going to get very big tusks. So you need to kind of use a few different indicators to be able to age an elephant. And it's not an exact science. There's a little bit of guesstimation in there as well. Oh, but I think these elephants are just loving the rain. They normally do enjoy the rain. Oh, look at him. I don't know if you saw the big one on the left, but he literally pulled the tail of the one on the right, wrapped his trunk around his tail. He's doing it again. I don't know if he's bullying him or whether it looks like it could be a bit of bullying. The smaller one is getting a bit annoyed with having his tail pulled. But this is definitely a group of bulls, quite varied ages. Look at him again. He's doing it again to that chap's tail. Very interesting. Just the one boy's tail. I'd love to know what that's all about. Sandy Franklin is saying we've got rain. How exciting it is. It is, Sandy. It's very, very exciting for us Africans. Rain is seen as a blessing. If you have rain on your wedding day in Africa, it is seen as a real blessing. Yeah, we humans are very quick to complain about the weather. When we're in winter and it's dry, we complain that we need rain, and then the minute the rain comes, we complain because there's too much rain. That elephant is really, I wonder if that youngster, so it's a young bull, and then of course you've got the older bull on the right, and the older bull is probably the dominant bull in this little group of bachelors. And I'm wondering whether that youngster is maybe starting to become sexually mature, and this bull is just can smell that and is maybe needing to discipline him, needing to just let him know who's boss. He's definitely very interested in smelling the rear end of that elephant. And it's probably a dominance thing. You can hear the white-faced whistling ducks calling there again. Oh, okay. Look at that. Look at how he is sticking his tusks. Sticking his tusks into the back there. Very interesting behavior. Ah, okay. I think I'm not having a good day with sexing these elephants because I'm doubting myself now when I look at that elephant and thinking that it actually could be a female. The forehead looked quite angular. And if that's the case, if it is a female, I'd like to get another look at the forehead there. I was so interested in what was going on at the tail end that I didn't look, excuse me, at the forehead. But I think that it could be a female, in which case he may have been testing her reproductive status. Let's hope he or she turns around, and then I can have a good look at the forehead and see if it was as angular as I thought it was. So Joan Mello is asking, what is the oldest Ellie that I know of? I have heard of elephants getting into their kind of early 60s. It's difficult in the wild to know for sure unless you're in a reserve where you've seen an animal that's, seen an elephant born, and you follow that elephant through its life and you have a very accurate idea of the age. But when we see these elephants in Kruger, it's quite difficult sometimes to know just how old they are, and a lot of it is guesswork. So a lot of the ages of elephants that people quote are elephants that have been raised in captivity, or elephants that have been in zoos or circuses and things like that. And there definitely have been records of elephants getting to about 60, but in the wild, probably not that old, probably into their mid 50s, because life is much tougher in the wild. It's, an elephant in captivity can get fed nice soft food, whereas an elephant in the wild, those teeth become a real determiner of how old the elephant can get. They just can't cope with the rough food any longer, and their bodies can't get the nutrients that they need. I am suspecting more and more that is a female, and that bull was testing her reproductive status. Gosh, it is consistent rain falling. Yeah, her head looks a bit angular from this angle. Need to see a proper side-on view to just confirm it. You know, the older an elephant gets, and once they've had a baby for the first time, it's quite easy to look at their mammary glands, which are between their front legs, the pectoral mammary glands, and then quite easy to sex them. But when they're young and they haven't had babies yet, it's a little bit more tricky. But the angle of the forehead is often a good way of doing it. Oh, listen to that water. See, the one on the left there is also missing quite a bit of its tail. Probably half of its tail is gone. It's quite a common injury to see with elephants. They'll often have bits of their tails missing. And one of the reasons for that could be there's a specific kind of a tick called a bont tick, which loves to get in the kind of anus, root of the tail area of a lot of animals. And if there's enough of a tick load there, they can literally cut off circulation to the tail, and the tail can end up, parts of the tail can end up falling off. So I've heard of that happening with a few different species. So that could be one possible reason for the tip of the tail being missing. Obviously, it could just be, an injury from a fight. Unlikely to be a snare. I don't think tails end up getting caught in snares very often. That's normally a trunk or a foot that ends up being caught in a snare. So it's more likely to be an injury, a natural injury that would have caused the tail tip to be missing. Okay, I think the Aldonio camera is a little bit more stable. The feed is more stable. So we're going to head back there and see if that big elephant bull is still around, or whether the zebras have had a chance to come down and drink. Okay, well, the zebras are still waiting their turn very patiently. And we've got a lovely younger bull here. It's amazing how patient those zebra have to be, just hanging back, waiting for the Ellie to finish. Oops, and it looks like they might have to wait a bit longer. The These two bulls decide to have a bit of a sparring session. Look how they test each other's mouths with their trunks. I love it when elephants do that. It's a real kind of show of attitude when they stick those their trunks over one of their tusks and hang them like that. Looks like the zebras don't want to be involved in any kind of skirmish or disagreement that might happen between these two elephants. They've moved off right out of sight now. Shame. And they obviously are quite desperate to get down to the water for a drink. Okay, and we've come to Rosie's pan. The Aldonia feed is being a little bit unstable. Sorry, everyone. So we've linked over to Rosie's pan, which is actually lovely. We haven't seen Rosie's pan yet this afternoon. Always nice to see what's happening here. We have our resident hippo. Look at his hairy nostrils. That was actually so cool. I don't know if I've ever noticed how hairy a hippo's nostrils are before. That was amazing. It's quite incredible with these close-up cameras. These cameras with these incredible zooms can teach us about these animals. I've definitely never noticed the hairs on a hippo's nostrils. I suppose many of you must be wondering what the function of those hairs would be, because I'm wondering that myself. I'm sure it must have some kind of a tactile function, a sensory tactile function for the hippo. I can't imagine any other reason why you would have hairs around your nostrils, but I'm trying to imagine. I suppose, just like we have hairs in our nostrils, it could also maybe protect the nostrils from things like dust and big particles being blown into them. So maybe that's a reason for the hairy nostrils. It's very cool to see, though. Doesn't seem as if it's raining in Olifantswest this morning. The water seems quite calm, other than when the hippo moves around. Sandy Franklin is asking, do elephants ever seriously hurt each other in a fight? Absolutely, Sandy. I've seen very serious fights between bull elephants. In fact, I've witnessed fights that have led to the death of bull elephants. If they get a tusk injury, and it punctures a lung or something like that, it's fatal. So yes, if generally these animals are quite clever, and if they're fighting with one another, they will very soon realize whether they are outgunned. And normally the one who is losing will then back down, because it really doesn't make sense for him to fight to the death. But sometimes when they're very evenly matched, the fights can become incredibly violent. And in those cases, sadly, there are often occasions where an elephant will be killed in a fight or be injured to such an extent that he dies a few days later. So yes, that does happen. It happens with hippos as well. Hippos will sometimes kill each other in fights, especially in the dry season when the water, there's just less water available, and the male hippos are trying to hold a territory. Those fights can get very, very violent, very aggressive, and they can sometimes result in one of them being killed. Difficult to say from this perspective, but this chap looks like he's got the water to himself. He doesn't look like he has much to worry about. He's got some old scars on his back, but nothing that looks recent or serious. And he looks pretty sleepy, this hippo. He's constantly closing his eyes. Very relaxed boy. Okay, we're going to pop back over to Victoria Falls now. Maybe we've got some more vulture activity there. Oh, we've got some warthog. It's the opposite of warthog activity. Warthog inactivity. That's so cute. It looks like a mother lying at the back with her three quite nicely grown piglets in the foreground. Very cute. And a little hooded vulture as well. That's a young hooded vulture with quite a dark brown fuzz to the top of its head. And those piglets have obviously found a nice little puddle of shade. Tiny little puddle of shade to lie in. So the hooded vultures we were looking at earlier had kind of pinkish heads with white fuzz, and those are the adults, whereas this bird is a juvenile. Typical of the juvenile, he's got much darker fuzz, much darker little feathers on the top of his head. Those warthogs are very chilled. I'm sure they'll use the birds to let them know if any danger approaches. I'm sure if the birds all suddenly took off, they would wake up and have a good look around. Especially with so many vultures and marabou storks around, I think it's quite safe for them to be snoozing like this, because they do have other species to just keep a lookout for them. Those two warthogs that stretched now, the one lying in the middle, kind of closest to the camera, is a female. And then the one to the left behind her is a male, a young male. And you can see that because of the warts on the face. The male has got a pair of warts kind of midway between his eyes and his nose, which the female doesn't have. So quite easy to sex a warthog, just looking at the wart on the face. And also another juvenile hooded vulture there. Love to know what he's getting. Must be little bits and pieces of bone fragments lying around. Hooded vultures are one of the things that they eat that makes them or sets them apart from other vulture species is they will consistently feed on predator feces. So at a kill, if the lions have relieved themselves close to the kill, you'll find hooded vultures actually going and feeding on the lion droppings. But they wouldn't feed on warthog droppings. So I'm not sure what they were getting. You see how all the vultures are suddenly flying, and that's caused the mummy warthog to raise her head and just look around. Amazing how these species use each other. They use the body language of another species to communicate and to help warn them of danger. It looks very hot there. Look how she's panting. Oh, she's yawning. That was cute. We often say when lions yawn that they are about to get up and move. I wonder if it's true of warthogs as well. I've never really noticed. I can't say that I've looked for that before with warthogs. Oh, it seems like it might be true of them. It does look so hot. You wonder why they would come away from that shade, but I suppose they need to maximize the amount that they eat while there's still some daylight. They're not going to feed at night. Mindy, you say that the vulture's checking to see if the warthogs are still alive. It could be the way they were all passed out there. Maybe it was thinking there could be a meal. Interesting that there's just the one vulture there now. All the other marabous and vultures have moved off. Oh, here comes another vulture walking into the shot on the left. It's an amazing angle that this camera gives us, right down low, and then from above can zoom in so that you see really close down low, and then it zooms out. It's a great perspective that you get at this camera. Mummy Warthog seems very reluctant to leave that nice little shady spot. It looks like one of the few shady spots around, and it's nice and close to the water as well. Ah, there she goes. Maybe going to go get a drink. Warty's having a little scratch on the tree there. Oh, here come a bunch more. All of them hooded vultures. So lovely to see so many hooded vultures in one area, acknowledging that they are critically endangered and really in a lot of trouble. It's amazing to have the opportunity to see so many. And I'm sure it's probably thanks to the vulture restaurant here at this lodge. I know in places like the Drakensberg in South Africa, vulture restaurants are really, really important for the survival of the bearded vulture in South Africa. I think without vulture restaurants, the bearded vulture would probably no longer occur in South Africa, because hyenas have been extirpated from most of the area where bearded vultures occur. And so in order to get bones and bone fragments, they really rely on vulture restaurants. Oh, that looks so nice. The little cool off in the water. Well, the warthogs have had a nice little drink and a quick little cool down in the water. Looks like they might be heading back to their shady spot for another rest. Oh, no, not a rest in the shade. They're going to move on. I suppose they definitely can't afford to rest for too long in the middle of the day. They probably just rested in the very hottest part of the day, but now they need to go and carry on looking for food. Okay, we're going to stay at Victoria Falls, but we're going to quickly pop over to the waterfall. Sorry, not the waterfall, the waterhole, and see what's happening at the waterhole. Ah, we have a crocodile and a very brave marabou stork, but he's obviously aware of the croc being there. Some guinea fowl calling in the background. And Mindy's asking if warthogs are related to wild boar. They certainly are, Mindy. I think possibly not as closely related to wild boar as maybe some other species, but they are all members of what we call the Suidae or the pig family. So they would be distant relatives of the wild boar. We also have a bush pig in South Africa, which you don't see much. They're more nocturnal and much shyer than warthogs. And they certainly look a lot more like a wild boar, but they are all members of the same family. Well, it's been a fantastic afternoon, everyone. It's been lovely having you with us. We've had some excitement with the very brief sighting of what I think was a leopard at Djuma. It's just been great all round, very varied at all the waterholes, and I look forward to another episode with you tomorrow. But thanks for joining us, and thanks for all your questions and comments and discussion. It's been a really great time. So we will meet at the same time, same place tomorrow. And until then, have a wonderful day or evening or morning wherever you are in the world. Goodbye for now.